Well, hi everyone, Sean Humphreys here. Welcome to All Things Retirement. In this particular video we put together, we're going to talk about one of the three key financial risks that retirees need to be very focused on, both in the pre-retirement phase and also through the retirement years. And of course, that's longevity risk. Now, longevity risk is a risk that we usually don't have to put too much effort into convincing clients that it's an important area to take a look at in the context of the retirement plan. I think for a lot of people, and probably the majority of people, one of the fears around retirement is having more life than income. And so it's really important that we get our heads straight around the probability of a long life expectancy. I'm always amazed at, even though that's a risk that people sort of subconsciously worry about, I often hear people being fairly flippant about how long they think they're going to live, somewhat pessimistic about their life expectancy. Now, you do have to be somewhat conscious of life expectancy for your own family. Every family has a certain kind of mortality experience. But you know what? We live in a period today where people are living longer and longer and longer. And so I would not make the assumption as part of my financial planning and retirement planning that you're going to have a shorter life and thus your financial capital doesn't have to last as long. So when we look at retirement, there's definitely challenges along the way. There's challenges around market risks and challenges around tax changes and economic cycles for sure. But the whole issue of longevity risk is a really important one to focus in on. Now, this chart really just summarizes the whole issue. And for some of you may know these numbers, but if you haven't looked at this area, sometimes it's really shocking, quite surprising, what the probabilities look like in terms of, longevity. So we're looking at the probability of a healthy 65-year-old living until different time periods. And so if we look at the probability of a healthy 65-year-old living to age 80 as an example, a single female, there's an 82% probability, single male, 77% probability, and in a male-female couple of the same age, there's a 96% probability that one of the couple are going to live to age 80. If we look at age 90, this is really interesting, 47%, so almost half the female population will live to age 90. Those at age 65, and we look at single males as a 38% chance of living to age 90, so not insignificant. If we look at a couple again, there is a 67% chance that one in that couple will be living to age 90. So again, when you look at the modeling, a number of years ago, if we used age 86, 85, that seemed to be sufficient in terms of long-term modeling. We wouldn't think of doing that today. Age 90 at a minimum is the number that we would typically look at. Well, what about age 95? What's the probability there? Well, for females, there's a 25% chance they live to that, 17% chance. But what's very striking is in a couple situation, there's a 37% chance that one in the couple would live to age 95. So that 90 and above cohort is actually one of the fastest growing demographic groups in our country today. So how do we cope with this particular issue? How do we plan for it? Well, this chart is from a financial forecasting chart that we model for clients all the time. And it looks at income, and so the line that cuts across that chart from left to right, the top line, is the amount of income they needed, which is roughly about $60,000 a year of after-tax income. And so when we look at that income over time, you can see that it just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. And then later on, in the late 80s, that green begins to go down. And the reason it's going down is because the capital's being drawn down. We're killing the goose that lays the golden egg every year to spend at that constant rate over time. So this kind of forecasting is a really helpful tool when we're trying to make sure that we have enough capital to last our life. Again, what's the concern? I don't want to have more life than income, Sean. Okay, how do we model that? Let's build in the model and see what is the long-term staying power of the portfolio. And so some clients might say, listen, Sean, I don't want that portfolio to wind down any sooner than age 90 or age 95. Now, I might still have my pensions, my defined benefit pensions or other government sources of income past that point. I might have home equity or other real estate assets, but I really want to make sure that I can have that basic level of non-discretionary income that's going to be there for my whole retirement. So I hope you found this particular video helpful, talking about one of the three key risks, and that's the longevity risk. If you haven't looked at this kind of forecasting in the past, feel free to reach out to us. The contact information is on the video, and we'd be more than happy to start a conversation about how our forecasting services work, and we can see whether we can be of any assistance to you. So you take care. All the best with your retirement planning.